Everybody, and welcome once again to Ruby's Classic Cooking. And today I am making cinnamon raisin English muffins. Now, this is a really good recipe, and as you can see, I've got my good old friend here, the bread machine, and it's going to help me out a lot with this recipe. Now, this doesn't make as big a batch as my plain English muffin one that I have to knead by hand, but it makes about a dozen English muffins, or about 8 or 10 gigantic ones. So anyway, let's dive right into this recipe. But first, thank you for all my subscribers. Thank you for subscribing, and I really appreciate you out there. And thank you for all my viewers. I hope you are going to give this recipe a try and enjoy. I came across this recipe for English muffins, and I thought, okay, I'm going to experiment with this, and I'm going to add cinnamon and raisins to it and see what I can do. This is actually a recipe for plain English muffins, but because I've added cinnamon and raisins to it, it becomes cinnamon raisin. So if you want to make plain ones, just leave those two ingredients out. Anyway, let's dive right into this recipe and get going. Okay, one empty bread machine bucket. Into that I'm going to put 1 cup of cold milk. My bread machine waits about 25 minutes before it starts so that everything's up to good temperature, so I don't have to worry about that. 3 tablespoons of butter. It doesn't give any other alternative, but if you don't use butter, well, whatever you use that's your butter substitute, use that. And 1 egg goes in here. 1 egg. Oops, 1 grade A large white egg. Could be a brown egg, could be whatever. After my egg, I put in 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. And that's all going in here in my bucket, just like that. And once that's in, this is 3 cups of all-purpose flour. That's Canadian all-purpose flour. If you are using, if you're in the United States, then that would be bread flour, or in the UK, that would be strong flour. Okay, so this is now going into my bucket. There we go. The last ingredient to go in is 1/2 teaspoons, which is 7 milliliters of yeast. Now, I don't use bread machine yeast, and I usually add just a little bit more just to be on the safe side. This is just regular all-purpose dry yeast, and then I repackage it in this. What I do is I buy a 1 kilo package, which is 454 grams or a pound of yeast, and I break it down and I reuse my bottles, my yeast bottles, and I store it in my refrigerator. Anyway, now this bucket full of rather unappetizing looking ingredients is now going to go into my bread machine. And then I choose my dough cycle, and 2 hours go by and dough is ready. But now, I haven't added the raisins yet. You probably noticed. You're going to go, Ruby, you're forgetting your raisins. What are you doing? Cinnamon raisin English muffins with no raisins. Just to hang on a second. Don't get all excited. I'll tell you what's going to happen. Okay. This will sit here for 25 minutes. And about partway through my cycle, it will beep at me 3 times. And when that happens, I have 1/3 of a cup of raisins here, and they're going to go in there with my dough. And then when it's done in 2 hours, I'll make a little pile of cornmeal on my counter here, and that's where I'll put my dough. So then I'll flatten that dough out till it's about 1/2 inch thick, which is about a little over a centimeter thick. And then I'll take a very large biscuit cutter, or my regular size biscuit cutter, and I will make round circles out of my dough, and then I'll put them to rise for 1/2 hour, and then I'll cook them, and then I'll have nice, beautiful English muffins. Anyway, I will bring you back in 2 hours, and my bread machine has done all of the heavy lifting, and I'll be ready with my dough to proceed. No kneading this stuff for 8 minutes, not with me, not by me. The bread machine takes care of that. Hi everyone, I'm back again, and I have my cornmeal here, and I'm going to make a puddle of cornmeal, probably around 1/3 of a cup of cornmeal. I don't measure it, I just kind of make a little pile here. Put my container over there, and if I need more, grab it. And here's my bread machine has finished, and here's my dough here all ready to make my English muffins. No kneading needed. No kneading required here. So I'm just going to flatten this out. It just says to squash your bread dough into your nice pile of cornmeal here. So I'm just going to flatten this out. Like I said, about ½ an inch, which would be a little over a centimeter, because 2.54 centimeters is an inch, and I'm making a ½ an inch thick thing here, so because it's going to raise again afterwards. Once I make my English muffins out of this, I'm going to use my 3-inch or 7.5 centimeter ring, which is a biscuit cutter, out of my set of biscuit cutters. So anything you have that's around that size, or is about the size of the English muffin you want. I have a 4-inch one, which I sometimes use if I want to make really, really nice big ones. Because that's the nice thing about making them at home, is if you want to make them a little bigger, you can make them a little bigger. I just find that this size is good for this, because for the raisin ones, as I did try making them bigger, but I had a hard time getting the dough in the middle. They would stay doughy in the middle, and this one seems to cook them better. So, that's it. Now, tongue not working today. I'm just going to sprinkle a little more, of course, cornmeal on top here. And now I'm going to start cutting my English muffins. My cinnamon raisin English muffins. See how many I can get out of these. And then when you buy a package, you get about 8 English muffins. And I find these also freeze really well, once they're all cooked and everything. And I've got my cookie sheet over there on the stove. And I'm just going to put these on a cookie sheet to rise for ½ an hour once I get them all cut out here. And then once they have risen for ½ an hour, then I'm going to get out my big flat skillet. I have a non-stick skillet that I'm going to use to cook them on. This is the tricky part with English muffins, is it's kind of a bit of a trial and error. How long do you cook them so that they're cooked and yet not burned? That's a bit of a learning curve. It's a bit like making fudge. When you're making fudge, it's a bit, you can follow the recipe, but it depends on the day, it depends on the humidity in the air, it depends on the temperature, you know, there's a lot of factors. So you just, once you have some experience, I mean, the first ones I made were kind of burned on the outside, but I'm getting better at it, at getting them to be more golden brown and less black, blackened. Even the ones that were blackened were good. Okay, now my first time here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Yes, I have 10. And see about how thick they are? And you see the raisins? And when they're cooked, you'll see the little dots of cinnamon on them. These I'm just going to move over there. I should bring that over here so I'll show you. And here's my cookie sheet. I'm just going to put these on so they can raise on my cookie sheet. Oops. I put sprinkle a bit more. Some of these don't have any of the cornmeal on them, and they really need some cornmeal on them. So I'll just be turning these over upside down so I can make sure I have cornmeal on the other side. There we go. Now I just take up the dough that I cut those out of, and I just kind of reshape it. Just kind of grab it in your hands and just kind of work it back so you get rid of all those holes and you have a nice solid piece of dough again. Okay? Well, it all kind of seams together. You can see how it just kind of fused back together into a solid piece of dough. Now I just put that back up here and press that down flat again. And then I'm going to cut out some more of my English muffins. I don't find it makes any difference whether these are the first time or whether I've reshaped this dough a couple of times. I don't find they're any tougher. I don't find any difference about them. I don't find they have any difference about them at all. Okay, now there's 2 more. So now I have a dozen. And now I still have another good sized lump of dough. I'm just going to take this and shape it, and I'll probably get at least 2 more, maybe 3. You see that turned out to be a good amount of corn syrup, cornmeal because I don't have a whole lot left here on my board. There we go. All right, that makes 13. And I know I've got enough here at least for one more. So I'm going to get 14 out of this batch. And I always cook it all, even if I just have a little blob left. I'll do up the little blob because you know what? That gives you a kind of a, you can look at that and help judge when your bake is done. You put that on the pan first, and you turn it over and you can see, oh, okay, this is done. You know, gives you a better feeling for it. There we go, 14 of them. And I'm just going to just one little bit of dough left. There we go. All right, 14. I'll just do this little tiny blob up. Now, there you go. There's 14 and a little blob. And now they're going to raise for half an hour, and I'll show you what they look like after half an hour. I'll be back. All right, here we are half an hour later, and look how they've nicely risen up in half an hour. And now I'm going to start cooking them. I have a nice large flat skillet, and I've turned my burner on my stove to medium. I have an electric stove. So that's where I'm going to start cooking them. I'm going to give it a few minutes to warm up, and then I'll start cooking them, and then I'll show you the final result. Roughly 5 minutes per side, but after about, the pan doesn't heat evenly on the bottom, so I kind of have to move them around a bit, and I have to check them, lift them up a little bit with your lifter, and when they start getting golden brown looking and kind of hard. You want them to be kind of hard underneath of them. Have a nice firm crust form on the bottom of them, and then flip them over to the other side and cook the other side. And you got to kind of look at them, because as they're cooking here on the sides, you should start seeing them maybe develop a little bit of a line. Now they'll do that definitely after they're dry, after they're cooled off, but that's too late. So you kind of have to judge, does the side look like it's starting to get done? It's a little bit of a trick, but with practice, they look great. And even if you overcook them a bit, that doesn't matter. And if you undercook them, well, that's okay so long as you toast them. Just, you know, when you pull them apart and they're a little doughy in the middle, don't worry about it. Just make sure you toast them. Now, get these on to cook. Hi, here I am back again with my first 5 that are cooked. As you can see, they're nice and golden brown on the first side. They're nice and golden brown on the other side. Let me just flip this guy over here for you. See that? So these are pretty much, I would say these are done. And they have a nice hard crust. Can you hear that? And even if they're a little bit darker, like this one right here is a little darker, that's okay. And see, it's a little darker on that side. And you can see how the sides are not quite raw looking. They're starting to cook. And as these cool, they should form a line. Let's see if I can get one you can see. They should be forming a line right about in the middle, right here. A circumnavigating your English muffin. If it doesn't, and they're a little doughy inside, like I said, just toast them. Well, I'm going to carry on and do the rest of my batch, and I'll show you the whole batch when I'm done. Took me about 5 minutes per side, and I had my burner turned to about medium. Depends on your stove. If you find that's cooking too fast, just turn it down a little bit, because it should take 4 or 5 minutes to get your nice golden brown crust on it. And if it's starting to burn by then, I would reduce my heat a little bit. You just kind of have to experiment with it, and you need something that's a non-stick pan, like if you have a nice cast iron pan, if you have a nice cast iron griddle, that's really ideal, a cast iron griddle. If you have nice non-stick griddle, I have a nice 12-inch skillet that is only about so deep, and it's really good for making these in, and I can fit 5 of these in at one time for a batch. Now with a grill, you can put a lot more on a grill. And if you have a frying pan, if you have a nice cast iron frying pan, my problem with mine is that it only takes about 3 or 4 at a time, and it takes a long time to cook them all. But you want something that you can work on and not have any grease on it, so you need a non-stick or you need cast iron. So I'll be back and show you what's going on with the next batch, and when I'm all finished, I'll show you the whole batch together. I've got 15 today that came out of this batch. Okay, there's my entire batch, and I think I will open one up to show you. Hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed, that it is cooked all the way through. Now, to open this up, take a fork, just a fork out of your drawer, and then take one of these things when they've cooled off. This one's pretty well cooled off. And what you want to do is just take your fork and go around the edge. This one might be a little bit doughy. Just go around the edges like this. And as you do, you just kind of pull, and then you just pull it apart, and look at that. That is, let's see, how is that? That is a little bit doughy in the middle, but that's okay, because once I put it in the toaster oven and toast that, that will be perfect. We'll let the rest of these cool off, and then we'll be doing some sampling and some pictures of the finished product. Well, I hope you enjoyed my video today, and I hope you will like, subscribe, comment, give this recipe a try, and by all means, come and join me next time on Ruby's Classic Cooking. Bye for now.